Hello and welcome to the Indiana University Grand Challenges Summit. I'm Gary Dick, the host of Inside Indiana Business, also the host of an event that I think you will find important, but also very relevant as Indiana attempts to, as Governor Holcomb would say, take it to the next level when it comes to attracting and retaining talent, becoming more competitive, more resilient in communities large and small. Today, we'll take a deeper dive into the impact of this initiative 5 years in. You will hear how IU is partnering with leaders from around the state of Indiana on initiatives that strengthen our economy, that actually save lives, and also make these communities more resilient today, but also years into the future. IU's 3 Grand Challenge initiatives were launched strategically on the resources and expertise of IU and partners throughout Indiana to help make life better for Hoosiers everywhere. Each Grand Challenge initiative focuses on a large-scale problem facing humanity. The 3 initiatives that make up the Grand Challenges program include Precision Health, Prepared for Environmental Change, and Responding to the Addictions Crisis. They address complicated problems and equip teams of dedicated researchers working across disciplines to work in collaboration with community partners in every corner of the state. You will hear from Indiana University President Michael McRobbie and Governor Eric Holcomb. They will both talk with IU alumna and ESPN anchor Sage Steele about how these Grand Challenge initiatives are improving the quality of life, the quality of place in communities, and importantly, driving innovation in our state. Well, let's begin with a brief video highlighting the voices of Hoosiers who have partnered with IU on this very important initiative. And also hear from IU's Vice President of Research, Fred Kate, on why Grand Challenges is a critical pillar of IU's strategy.
The Grand Challenges program was launched as part of our bicentennial strategic plan. It's an effort to address some of the most critical needs facing the state of Indiana. We made a decision early on to try to focus our resources and our efforts in 3 areas. We could have picked 100 areas, and faculty and others brought forth proposals for all sorts of important needs. The first we launched was Precision Health, so really helping to treat every single person as an individual and trying to combine data about them so that you could really identify what their needs were and how to meet them.
When I think of the future of cancer care and treatment, I would love to be able to know that there's that right mix for each of those specific cancers, whether it's triple negative or another kind, to know that someone has thought about you and what you're going through.
The idea of the Precision Genomics Clinic is to take a group of patients with advanced cancer and really to do a better job of trying to personalize their therapy, treating each patient as a unique individual.
We have this sort of antiquated dogma where if we take a group of patients with the same diagnosis and treat them with the same drug, we expect the same response. And the answer, that's not really the case. We're really focused on trying to individualize therapy, individualize our treatment plans to each patient's unique makeup.
I think it's hard to put into words how important precision genomics is and what IU is doing. It's a chance to give people life. It's a chance for people to continue to be with their families. I think it means the world, not only for beating the cancer, but also to make sure that you're treating the person.
Our second Grand Challenge is about the environment and preparing for environmental change. This Grand Challenge has really been focused on what can we do to help communities and families and farmers and businesses respond to, prepare for, be able to deal with environmental change.
Everything's more extreme. We've lost our balance. We have events that are more severe. When it rains more. When it stays dry longer. When it gets hot, it gets hotter. There is a niche for an organization like ERI to step in and start really helping us understand the science behind what we're doing.
I learned about the Environmental Resilience Institute after taking office. Part of the way that we found out about ERI is because one of my goals as mayor was to form an environmental or a sustainability commission. This is an opportunity for our community to define what mitigating climate change looks like for us. What I'm excited about is that this is a community-based approach that is using science to help inform us of how we develop policy.
We all benefit from a better environment, cleaner water, cleaner air, healthy soils, higher quality food. The resilience that is required in a system to produce these things is where ERI can play a major role in helping Hoosier farmers to provide those ecological services to all Hoosiers.
And then our third grand challenge is responding to the addictions crisis. We are trying to, again, bring the absolute best of science to also work with the organizations that have been delivering care for years. What works? What doesn't work?
We don't have the resources to do the things that IU is doing. I don't have as many resources as the state of Indiana has. So through my networking, I've been able to partner with those organizations to get the assistance that we need at the local level. We have to do our level best to reduce the number of people who are facing addiction in our community.
Giving them another option other than the substance use, ways to cope, connecting them with the behavioral health services.
We can tap into the resources at IU to help us with this battle, and that's why it's vitally important for IU to come alongside communities throughout the state of Indiana.
One of the most striking things about the Grand Challenges is the amount of vision that it took to do it. I love seeing a university put together its resources like this. I love seeing the fact that Indiana University, as part of the community, is really focusing in an explicit and a public way on the needs of the people of Indiana. I think it is a very good thing to see the university working so closely with the state, with the governor, with state agencies, with agency heads. They have been terrific, and it's been a great chance for the university to sort of live up to the promise of being Indiana's university.
All right, Fred, thank you for that great perspective on the Grand Challenges Initiative and also for your leadership in so many areas around the state of Indiana. Before we speak with our first guest, let's review some key data points related to each initiative. First, the Precision Health Initiative. It is currently in 68 counties around the state, has set clinical health goals to find new ways to prevent type 2 diabetes and Alzheimer's, and to discover new cures for pediatric sarcomas and triple-negative breast cancer. The Prepared for Environmental Change Initiative is active, get this, in every county in the state of Indiana. All 92 counties involved, has already engaged 30 local governments through its Hoosier Resilience Cohort program. And the Responding to Addictions Crisis Initiative is collaborating with at least 160 partners statewide, including community organizations, treatment and recovery services, and harm reduction organizations. Now I'll hand off to IU alumna and ESPN anchor Sage Steele, who has a very special guest, IU President Michael McRobbie.
And what an honor it is for me to get to sit down with the 14th president of Indiana University, Michael McRobbie. It is such an honor to speak to you once again. IU has 3 grand challenges initiatives in progress: Precision Health, Prepared for Environmental Change, and Responding to the Addictions Crisis. That's a lot, and it's all so important. Where did you come up with the idea for a grand challenge and that those 3 items were going to be the focus?
Well, I think ever since Indiana University became a true research university, which would have been in the late 1880s, something like that, our whole background in research had been the support of the individual investigator, or maybe the small laboratory and so on. So what we'd never really done was look at how could we focus all of our resources in one area on some major problem or set of problems. And the world is changing in terms of how research is done. There is, of course, still room for the individual investigator, the individual genius who does his or her work and can change the world with what they do. But more and more of the impact that science and research is having is coming through teams. So we wanted to try, for really the first time in the university's history, to focus our resources, our intellectual resources and financial resources in just a small number of areas, to seek them out competitively and then focus on the impact that we could have whether it was in the state or nationally or internationally. It was an open book at that time, but that was the big picture. That was what we were trying to achieve.
Okay, and when you look at those areas, I liked this quote from you. This was early on. Grand challenges initiatives will be few, large, focused, and measured by their impact, allowing us to work in new and creative ways at the scale necessary to make a real difference on such global issues. So it's local, it's grassroots, but it begins there and then it goes globally. What about that real world impact? What was so crucial for you to try to achieve, again, while doing so right there at home?
Yeah, that was of course one of our goals. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that's interesting about the Grand Challenges program is that when we started it, we didn't have any predetermined view about the types of topics that we were going to cover. We wanted to seek the best science, the best research that we could, but always science and research that was going to be focused on impact locally, globally, and so on. We really were leaving it open as to what were the best ideas, the best projects that our scientists and researchers could come up with. But that was at the back of our mind all the time was impact.
This has been a years-long process for you, the Grand Challenge, and obviously it's going to continue for years to come. And that's the beautiful thing, because these are issues that are probably never going to go away, but hopefully we pray we continue to try to mitigate. So President McRobbie, with all that said, and the depth that each of these challenges brings, you're a perfectionist. I know you want to have 100% on all of these. How do you summarize how it has gone so far as you try to meet these challenges? They're
very different, but they're very much focused on, well, as the name says, Grand Challenges, tailored drug treatments, tailored to a person's genetics, coming out of our School of Medicine, our other clinical schools in the university, our other labs in the university. Major impact. Being able to come up with the right policies to help the agricultural community and the broader communities in Indiana adapt to environmental change. And of course, being able to mitigate the addictions crisis in Indiana. So in every one of those areas, I think we've made great progress. Overall, in terms of focusing our resources, we have recruited about 130 new researchers, faculty members, and so on between those projects. Probably close to 200 graduate students, PhD, and other students, and so on, all working on various projects in these three areas. And grant funding that has been obtained, the leverage that we've got from our investment is measured in the hundreds of millions of dollars too. So it really has acted, the three projects have acted as major catalysts in each of the three areas, and are having and are already having a major impact.
You know, I imagine well, I know this, with any project, no matter what the intent, it seems that you have the glass half empty people and the skeptics. Was there any amount of pushback that you received, President McRobbie, that, you know, people out there who were skeptical of the role that a state university could play?
I think there was some skepticism, but and some quarters. But I have to say, I'm particularly grateful to Governor Holcomb. From the very outset, Governor Holcomb completely understood what we were trying to do and has been a great supporter. And I think that's true. It's certainly been true at the level of the mayors in the state, particularly with preparing for environmental change and the addictions crisis. What I'm particularly proud of is that we have been able to identify areas that really will have a major impact in the state, and have been able to put together partnerships with the state that have been productive, and where I think it's really helped us demonstrate to the state that we're not just a great research university in areas that are maybe more focused and more abstract areas or fundamental areas of science, but we are also a great research university in terms of the impact that we can have in the state itself.
14 years at the helm, President McRobbie, 24 total in leadership positions. You have done so much, and I'm going to put you on the spot once again, because I think this is important. You have changed Indiana University forever. What would you like your legacy to be?
One always wants one's legacy to simply be that you've changed an institution for the better. And I'd like to think that in the 14 years I've been president, that I have changed with the involvement of hundreds and hundreds of other people. This has never been a one-man show. That I've between us, we've managed to change Indiana University for the better. And the things that you went through are things that I think will have a lasting and enduring impact. And it'll decades from now, people will see the impact of those changes. They're not ephemeral changes. They're not the kind of changes that will be gone tomorrow. They're going to be around for a long time.
100,000%. Yes, this goes on forever. Thank you so much for making it great, truly great, and for setting us up for the future. President Michael McRobbie, we love you. Thank you. Please tell the First Lady, Lori, hello from all of us.
Thank you, Sage.
Thank you. Go IU.
Thank you. Go IU indeed. Thank you very much. You're very kind. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sage and President McRobbie, on that thoughtful and very insightful discussion. Now, before we shift gears and move on to Governor Eric Holcomb, I think it's important that we get some perspective. We hear from individuals who are actively involved in the Grand Challenges initiative. I have had the opportunity on Inside Indiana Business over the past number of weeks to talk with a number of people who are actively involved in the initiative to get their thoughts on the impact and what it means for Indiana. Here's some of what they had to say. Well, climate change, the addiction crisis, and providing precision health programs to Hoosiers all over the state, all part of IU's Grand Challenges initiative.
So the Grand Challenges initiative was adopted by the Board of Trustees as part of really the bicentennial plan for the university, as a way of really giving back to the state and demonstrating the impact that we try to have in the state. And it focused almost $300 million in 3 areas where we would make a particular impact working with partners across the state. And those 3 areas, as you mentioned, were precision health, dealing with environmental change, and responding to the addictions crisis. So, for example, we set up a new Alzheimer's clinic, funded in this case almost entirely by the NIH, an Alzheimer's treatment discovery center here in Indiana that's trying to provide new treatments for Alzheimer's, the nation's fastest growing and most debilitating disease, not just in Indiana, but across the entire country.
The Precision Health Initiative is one of 3 grand challenges at IU. Launched in 2016, it seeks to eradicate some of the most dreaded diseases faced by Hoosiers, including triple-negative breast cancer. IU says the research can help revolutionize the way clinical trials are being conducted for cancers around the world, getting the right treatment to the right patient at the right time. That kind of seems to encapsulate kind of the mission. Expand on that, if you would.
Be glad to. So you're exactly right. That is exactly the goal. One of the challenges is you can't solve everything at once. So we've been funded since 2016, since we were announced by President McRobbie, and we've really made progress in 2 areas that I want to talk about today. The first is triple-negative breast cancer, as you mentioned, and also a childhood cancer, which is osteosarcoma. So triple-negative breast cancer is one of the most aggressive forms of cancer, and it disproportionately affects African-American women. It's a cancer that we really need to have better treatments for and better ways to identify those at increased risk.
According to Indiana University Environmental Institute's Hoosier Life Survey, more than half, 58%, believe the environmental change is as adversely affecting the country right now. The IU Environmental Resilience Institute is playing a key role in helping well over 24 communities around the state evaluate environmental needs and build an action plan to combat climate change.
As mayor, I wanted to find a way to help reduce the carbon footprint of the city of Goshen and find any and all projects that we could do to really start addressing that challenge. When IU came to us, being part of their cohort has been absolutely amazing. It's brought us resources and allowed us to move a lot faster than we would have just on our own. We've got some great resources here in our community and through many institutions we have here in Goshen. But being part of IU's cohort has definitely accelerated our projects, and we're getting to the point where we're now implementing, not just talking and planning.
We turn now to Next Level Recovery Executive Director, Doug Hunsinger. And Doug, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks to the work of some IU economists, we know that there is a $4 billion economic toll that this crisis has taken. And we know that COVID-19 has not made this any better. So we're really looking forward and convening people and providing experts all across the state and communities large and small as they look to help provide solutions and help communities combat the epidemic in their own backyard.
Well, one theme certainly in each of these initiatives is the importance of partnerships. State and local leaders, business and community leaders, academic leaders throughout the state of Indiana to make these initiatives work. One of the most important and consistent partners in the process has been Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb, who is leading the state through extraordinary and very difficult times. Governor Holcomb and his colleagues have played a central role in each of the Grand Challenge initiatives. He talks now with Sage Steele about the importance of the partnership between IU and the state of Indiana.
Well, thanks, Gary. And Governor Holcomb, it's nice to meet you. That's a thing nowadays, isn't it? I look forward to being able to say hello and give you a hug in person, but nice to talk to you on this.
Good to Zoom. Yes, great to meet you.
Yeah, Zoom is now a verb, an action word. That's what we're all doing.
Right.
Thank you so much for being here. And it's interesting because I had such a nice conversation with President McRobbie just a little bit ago as well. And so I'm interested to hear your answers on a lot of these topics, similar perspectives, but probably a little bit different as well. So maybe start from the top and where the idea of partnering with Indiana University on the Grand Challenges program, where did that idea come from? Specifically the part that really fascinated me the most, that responding to the Addictions Grand Challenge. Where did that part originate?
Yeah, well, credit where credit's due, and it can be traced back to President McRobbie himself, to Michael McRobbie's kind of visionary, community-minded, on the ground. How does the data drive not just decisions but results? And I just couldn't have been more interested when he talked about Indiana University and all of IU's partners, not just the schools of nursing and public health and the med school and the hospital network, but all of their on-the-ground partners across the state of Indiana, and his willingness to look at maybe one of Indiana's, and really most states in the country, one of our biggest challenges, and that's our health and well-being of every single citizen and of all walks. And for him to look at one of the biggest challenges and then offer such a to view it more as a bold opportunity and to bring all that expertise and to organize it in this grand challenge of ourselves, if you will. I mean, that was just music to my ears. From that very first day forward, we've continued to not just talk about a number of these things, but how do we get the awareness up, the access up to more people who are struggling with addiction. Since that first discussion, our treatment beds in the state of Indiana by about 160%, which shows you just how big, the need really was. And so President McRobbie was way out in front early and has committed really from that day one to bring all his resources and the school and partners to bear to increase, again, the awareness and most importantly, the access.
One of the things I think with any difficult topic is just to talk about it. And it's absolutely heartbreaking. And when people realize that they're not alone with it, gosh, that makes all the difference in the world. Before we move on, is there any story you can share? I'm sure you've met so many people along the way who have had this affect them personally, and then to see what you all are doing is life-changing. Is there anything you can recall?
Yeah, it truly is. I think every family either has been affected by it or knows someone.
Yeah.
And I certainly am no exception to that. And it is literally the one area where our state seal has the sun on it and it's rising. And there's been this long dispute whether it was sunset or sunrise. And I choose to think, and I've never looked at it the same, when I heard of a very close friend of mine who lost their child, and then I heard of another pretty close friend of mine who's two actually families who were their children were struggling with some addiction issues. And so again, it affects all ages, it affects all walks. And for folks who think that they're alone, we want to do all that we can to show that they're not, in fact. And that, as you mentioned, Sage, that stigma that's associated, we had to dispel that. And we had to say, look, this is a disease that we will address with you every step of the way. And as a state, sought to educate more prescribers. We've sought to improve care for folks who are struggling. We've sought to train more, community professionals on the ground on how to assess and then treat. We've sought to get more resources on the ground. And so we're making sure that we're doing all we can to educate on the prevention front and then make sure that the resources are there on the treatment front as well.
And patience truly is a virtue with something like this. Nothing is an overnight process, unfortunately. It'd be great to wave that magic wand and make it all go away, but we're all realists and we know that we're in this for the long haul. I know you said at the launch of the Addictions Grand Challenge, this is your quote, which I know you know. From education and training to data collection and analysis to community and workforce development, Indiana University's Grand Challenge is going to go such a long way to help turn the tide against this crisis of addiction. We're going to beat this thing together. I just know it. It's a beautiful quote. So now you look ahead, you look forward. You've done so much, Governor, but what's next with this challenge in particular?
Well, I think what's next is we've got to make sure that, the rhetoric turns into results. And that's the beautiful thing about this Grand Challenge is we measure, we know how many more boots, so to speak, are on the ground. We know how many beds are available. We're tracking that. Technology has played such an important role. We're devoting more of our resources, health resources. We're not just admiring the problem. The Grand Challenge has taught us many things, but one of the biggest things is no matter how big the challenge is, that together, these partnerships, this collaboration, it's so key from the local to the state level, our universities. And when you get we all rely on one another and we're all dependent on one another. And so when there's not just the campus, but it's the campus plus the community, it's extended, that's really where the magic starts to happen when we all start to associate on the toughest problems still out there. All that low-hanging fruit, it's been picked. Now we're talking about curing cancer and helping folks who are addicted. Life happens. And we've got to, be there for one another. And obviously that's reflected in our priorities, the Grand Challenge being the biggest of them all, so to speak, that brought all these great minds together, all these different disciplines together and said, let's do this together. And it's working.
Yeah. I mean, hey, nothing like a good team, a true team. And that's what you all put together. The collaboration, it's interesting to read about the collaboration with businesses, with farmers, with community leaders in every single county in the state of Indiana. Can you talk about those collaborations and what has come from them?
Yeah, that really is the key. And when you bring together so many different perspectives around the table and you make room for everyone, you deliberately make room for everyone at that table and say, please step up. We need your expertise because you know better what's happening in urban, rural, or suburban Indiana. You live there, you're rooted there. Yeah. And so how are we going to address this in the most efficient way? And that's where, because Indiana University has so many, not just different campuses, but partnerships and stakeholder relationships already on the ground in so many different counties across our state, that it truly is more infectious than the disease itself. That how do we help? How do we come together? We've got a dream team, so to speak, in terms of everyone having a role, figuring out what their role is. We call the play, and then let's go hit the court and make some magic.
Listen, I know that you're not going to do it, so I will, to commend you and President McRobbie and everybody, your entire team, for what you have done and how you've done it through the toughest possible, unimaginable times over the last year plus. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are you most proud of that you've taken out of this, especially over the last year?
I think it's, well, thank you for that. And teamwork works, but it doesn't just happen. It has to be fostered. Sometimes what I've learned in dealing with folks who are struggling with addiction is sometimes finding the road to recovery is the easy part. It's staying on the road to recovery that is the hardest part. And I've seen that up close and personal. And so we have to make sure that we never back away, whether it's our business community. We've had incredible pillars of the community in our business community step forward and say, what more can we do? We've had, businesses and families and hospitals and universities like the flagship, Indiana University is doing with this grand challenge. But it really does take all of us to make gains. So I'm really, really proud of the kind of the spirit of cooperation that's been exhibited across our state, border to border.
Thank you so much for what you've done, and President McRobbie as well. It's obviously changing lives and saving lives.
Well, as we bring the Indiana University Grand Challenges Summit to a close, I do want to thank you for joining us. Also, a very special thanks to Governor Holcomb, President McRobbie, and Sage Steele for providing your time and talents. I hope today's discussion really offered you new insights and information about the critical importance of each of the Grand Challenge initiatives and about the ongoing work of researchers and staff who are making it happen daily and weekly throughout the state of Indiana. To learn more about the IU Grand Challenge initiatives, visit grandchallenges.iu.edu. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us.